One of the most powerful strategies is validating them. It's a technique from DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, which basically is around if you have someone who expresses a fear and you think, well, that's silly. It's not to them. It's
Right.
not, it's their reality. And it's so invalidating to say things like, hey, you shouldn't feel that way. You're lucky. You're lucky to have the life you lead. Well, that person doesn't feel all that lucky. So the simple phrase is, I can see how someone might feel that way.
I know people in thinking about how to be helpful to somebody else wants to tell them how to feel and why they should feel that way. And I've seen it, you see it a lot with people who are really trying to be empathic and trying to be supportive and caring. And yet it sort of almost has a counter effect where it just, yeah, well, I of course I know I want to feel that way, but I don't. And they don't necessarily say that, but it just makes them kind of retreat and not want to even talk about how they're feeling. And so one of the things that that strikes me, and this whole concept of my radio show was about, and this is what's so powerful about the model too, that I like so much about what you and Jack and Peter have worked on all these years. What was exciting to me when I first learned about the model was the idea that you can have a certain emotion that's useful to a particular task. And if you're feeling an emotion that's aligned with that task, that's great. But a lot of times we aren't. So if we're stuck at home and we're starting to feel anxious or tense, and that's not helpful. So one of the things is, asking ourselves, where's the feeling originating from? And is there some other way to change that feeling? And if not, is there some other way to meet the need than something inappropriate that I might do, without thinking? The idea of planning emotionally how I want to feel is a really powerful part of this model that I've really used to full advantage. And this idea of the emotion roadmap, when you first asked me, how do I help people with these concepts, I began to think about those series of questions. And I thought, well, if what I'm feeling, and this is true about a lot of smart people, when you're stuck and you're really unable to problem solve, and yet you're a really good critical thinker, it's almost, in my experience, almost always something emotional that's going on, either inside you or with somebody else that you have to deal with, one or more people. And if you can ask yourself what would be ideal to feel, as soon as people start to think like that, and they come up with something that's more ideal to feel, I find people's brains race to figure that out. How do I get there? How do I feel that? The idea of trying to be helpful to people, you talked about tone of voice. I'm trying to get people on this show to call in with problems they're having in their lives that are pretty risky to share on the air. I mean, what would make somebody feel like they could call somebody they've never met before and assume they're going to get some help and put what's really worrying them, maybe for weeks or months or even years sometimes, on a radio show? So I've got to somehow, through tone of voice, generate enough trust in somebody to feel like this is worth it. Somehow this guy's making me feel like I want to talk to him and share what I've got because he seems like he's able to help other people. Maybe he can help me. So that's what I'm trying to do, even in this. And some of the things you just said, I think, David, everybody who's listening to that are going to get some ideas maybe that they didn't have before. And hopefully that's, even if it's the single breath idea. Yeah, it's just simple things sometimes. And yet when you do them, they're powerful.
Well, that's the key, Chuck, which is you can know these things, but if you don't do it, there's no positive impact on your life. It's sort of saying, I exercise, really critical to mental health. I went for a jog about 2 years ago. It's got to be frequent. So otherwise, it's just not going to work. And I think that's the key. So people shouldn't use this to beat themselves up like, oh gosh, I'm not doing any of those things. Instead, it's find one thing. That's all. Find one thing and try it.